Hello everyone, so welcome back to my class again. Today we'll discuss an important figure of speech or a technique applied in literature by the authors, especially in stories or novels or in poems, stream of consciousness. So now today we'll discuss this technique about stream of consciousness and we'll come to know what does this technique stream of consciousness mean and how does it is applied. So basically, if we have to talk about this technique of writing literature or using the system of consciousness in literature, then okay, few authors that we have to know are Virginia Woolf, Samuel Beckett, James Joyce, Marcel Proust. Okay, so dear learners, now without wasting our time, let's start our course. But before I start my lecture, my usual request is don't forget to subscribe the channel. And if you have not subscribed the channel yet, or if you are new to this channel, please promote the teacher like me by subscribing the channel and hitting the bell icon. Okay. So if we have to talk about what is stream of consciousness, so in literature, stream of consciousness is a method of narration. Okay, so here please take note of this thing. Method of what? Method of narration that describes happenings in the flow of thoughts. So that describes happenings in the flow of thoughts in the minds of the characters. Okay, so every one of us must have so heard, seen what streams or rivers. How do they flow? Rivers, streams, they don't flow in a very straight way, do they? No, they don't. Yes or not? So they follow in a very curvy zigzag way. So if we have to talk about our thought process inside our mind, then our thought process they also function like as a time machine. I mean to say that, so at present you might be thinking about this video, but all of a sudden after 2 minutes of watching this video, you might be thinking what to have in your dinner and what you had last day in your dinner. So our mind is a time machine, though there is no invention of time machine yet by the scientists, but our mind is the only time machine that can travel back and forth and again come at present at the same moment within the second. Okay, so if we have to talk about the thought process that function in the mind, then our thought process is like a river that keeps on going past and going in future and again returning to present from past and future. So stream of consciousness is a technique where the characters in a poem or characters in a story or novels, their thought process are shown in a very zigzag way where they narrate their past and again then they come to present and when again they go back to, go into future. Okay, so this term basically it was coined by psychologist William James in his research The Principles of Psychology. He writes, it is nothing joined, it flows. Okay, means our thoughts it keeps on flowing like a river flows in a very curvy, in a very zigzag, in a very windy way. A river or a stream is the metaphors by which it is most naturally described. Our thought process can be described by the river because it keeps on, as I have already said, it keeps on flowing in a very bent, yes, another way, in a very windy, in a very zigzag way. So, in talking of it hereafter, let's call it the stream of thought. So, it's called stream of thought, consciousness, or a kind of subjective life. Okay, so dear learners, what kind of, isn't it, narration we find? So, in a writing where stream of consciousness is applied, we find very subjective opinion, very subjective. So, attitude, very subjective, isn't it, emotions of the characters in that novel or in that poet where the stream of consciousness is applied. Okay, so now look at here, moving ahead, another appropriate term for this device is what? Interior monologue. So this can also be called interior monologue, where the individual thought process of a character is associated to his her actions are portrayed in the form of monologue that addresses the character itself. Okay, so if we read any of the writing that has used this stream of consciousness technique, then we in that writing find the characters talking to themselves and having an interior monologue. So therefore it is different from dramatic monologue. So in dramatic monologue, what happens? Two or more than two characters, they keep on talking to each other, isn't it? So that becomes a drama, that functions like a drama, then that becomes dramatic monologue. Soliloquy, so where single individual talks to himself or herself. But in interior monologue, that person does not make sound, isn't it? Without speaking, that person talks to himself interiorly. That becomes interior monologue. So now, if we have to take examples of stream of consciousness in literature, then stream of consciousness style of writing is marked by the sudden rise of thoughts and lack of punctuation. Basically, when you see any writing that has comprised stream of consciousness technique, you will find there is no punctuation, use of punctuation very properly, and the thoughts they keep on rising, isn't it, into past, future, and at present. So the use of this narration style is generally associated with modern novelists and short story writers of 20th century, and this technique is also called narrative technique in literature. Okay, so what are the function or what is the function of stream of consciousness in literature? Of course, it aimed at expressing in words the flow of characters' thoughts and feelings in their minds. I have already explained that stream of consciousness helps us to understand how certain characters' thought process are working in their minds. Isn't it? The technique aspires to give readers the impression of being inside the minds of the characters. This technique basically takes us inside the minds of the characters. Basically, there is no technology invented yet to read someone's mind, someone's psyche, isn't it? But through the writings, through the stream of consciousness technique, at least literature helps us to understand how characters of our society think, how characters of our community, family, they think. Therefore, the internal view of the minds of the characters sheds light on plot and motivation in the novel. Then, if we so read the internal view of the minds of the characters, then we come to know and understand more about the plot and motivation in the novel. How, what kind of plot that novel, that writing has, that story has, and how they are motivated, how characters are motivated, guided, and controlled to do certain action. Okay, so this is it in a very short and brief. I have so presented this video, and please, if you like this lecture, don't forget to subscribe the channel and share this video to your friends. Have a good day. We'll meet soon.